I noticed that I was always quite on the bigger side. So people would always be like, oh, how much you bench? How much you do all of this? But I would just tell them that I don't even go to the gym like that. So as I started going to the gym, getting the pump, I was really enjoying it. And I was like, oh, what can I do with this that's going to make it more fun? I could compete. I actually looked at all of like the lifting sports, strongman, Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting. Powerlifting seems like the simplest to balance alongside because it's just squat, bench and deadlift. And then I realized that, first of all, I wasn't strong enough at that point. I didn't have the mobility. I had to then plan. I need to get my numbers up and I need to get my mobility up. And then I'll apply for my first show to compete. And that ended up being in my first year, 2 years after I started gym.
Hey, my name is Anisha Patel, and I'm obsessed with all things career development. Whether that's navigating your professional journey, gaining clarity, or building the confidence to reach your goals, I'm here to support you in crafting your roadmap to success. I've grown a podcast that has reached thousands of people across the globe. I'm growing an online business, and I'm stepping outside of my 9-to-5 to build a career of my dreams. I've walked the path of transformation myself, and now I'm here to share insights, strategies, and stories to help you carve out a career that you love, or even a podcast you've been dreaming of creating, but you've not taken the leap to start yet. If you want to connect with me in between podcast episodes, I share my personal career insights and behind-the-scenes stories with my newsletter community, which you can join using the link in the show notes. This is the Pharmacist Diaries podcast. Hey there, pharmacy family. Welcome back to the Untold Stories of Pharmacy Students series. Can you believe we're already halfway through the journey? We've heard stories of digital leadership, community building, mental wellness, and including and finding your pharmacy family. But trust me, we are just getting started. Today's story challenges everything you think you know about a typical pharmacy student. Meet Ewoma Ayetuoma, a British Drug-Free Powerlifting Association world record holder, BPSA's IT officer, and living proof that your journey just doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. From navigating medicine school rejections to finding his calling in pharmacy, from setting records in powerlifting to rebuilding after a devastating ACL injury, he's redefining what's possible when you refuse to let challenges define you. As a fourth-year UEA student who's fought through first and second-year resits, adapted to family relocations between Leeds and Bristol, and transformed academic setbacks into leadership opportunities, Ewoma's story reminds us that it's not about where you start, but it's about how you choose to continue. If you're ready to dive into another story that proves pharmacy students are anything but ordinary, you're in the right place. So let's dive into this week's episode. Hello, Ewoma.
Hello.
We're here. We're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
After all these months of having conversations around getting this series up and running, our setback of annoying English weather in December and not being able to record, we're finally here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited.
Glad to be here.
So let's start our story by talking a little bit about how you got into pharmacy. I know that your initial journey was considering medicine. So tell us a little bit about what it was like when you were doing your A-levels and making your transition into university and applying for universities and what happened with starting pharmacy.
Okay. So how I started was I really wanted to do medicine after year 11. Because my sister, she's a doctor herself right now. And then I saw that, and then I just looked at medicine as a career, and I looked at what would be interesting within that. And I was like, oh, I think it would be cool to try be a surgeon because it seems like quite a nice career. So I saw what I had to do to get there, all the volunteering, the subjects I had to pick. Luckily, I was good at science, good at maths. So that's what I picked for A-levels. And then I just did all the volunteering and then applied to the Russell Group universities. And then I did my UCAT as well. And that went very well. So up to that point, it seemed like, oh, it's almost perfect. It's going very well. until my interviews. Now, from my interviews, I personally thought they went quite well. But for all of them, they offered me a different course. Sheffield, they put me on the reserve list, but they offered me, I think it was biomedical science, to pick that. And then if there's spaces, I'd get into medical school. So I was banking on that up until results day, because I didn't sit actual exams. So I already knew I was going to get my predicted. So the grades weren't going to be an issue. It was the actual university allocation. So it got to results day. And then I was waiting in the morning. I looked online, were there open spaces in Sheffield? No news. So I called. They answered, they said, sorry, we've overfilled that medical school. You're not getting into the medical school here. So I went into clearing and I looked to see if there was any other medical schools that had open spaces. So I called around and there was none. So from that period, I think it was in August, for those few weeks in August, I had to decide whether I'm going to restart my application to medical school and still try to go for it, or to see what my other options were, and I ended up choosing what my other options were, which was pharmacy. I was like, ooh, pharmacy. I never really thought of that. At this point, I didn't even know what a pharmacist did like that. So I clicked on the course. I read about it. I read which pharmacy schools in the UK are good. And then UEA was on that list. So I was like, I'm just going to take the step and just do the pharmacy and see where it takes me. And yeah, that's basically how I got into pharmacy. They did a phone interview for me, and I actually didn't know what I was saying. I was just talking about, I love science and I also love people and the medical field. So I thought pharmacy would be good for me, and they accepted me.
Your journey is a little bit like mine. I did a pharmacy as sort of a backup choice. It wasn't really what I expected to do. Though my parents owned pharmacies as I was a child growing up, though they're not pharmacists, my plan was initially to do medicine, to become a pediatrician.
Yeah.
And I loved kids, constantly wanted to be around children, did loads of babysitting as a teenager, and just thought I kind of knew that I would need to choose something professional. It was kind of expected of me growing up. And I was really pushed into choosing a medical career from family members, etc. And because I didn't really know what else I wanted to do or what my passions were, being 18 and having to make these decisions so early in your life when you don't really know that much about yourself yet, you're pressured into making decisions quite quickly. And I didn't get the grades for medicine. And this was when I was living in America. So I wasn't living in the UK at the time. And it was either that I would take a whole year out and then reapply for exams again, because you have to take what's called an MCAT and improve my scores so I can get into a university. Or the backup option was, okay, fine, let me take the PCAT, which is the pharmacy version, and apply for pharmacy schools. But at the same time, I wasn't really happy living in the US. I moved there when I was 15, finished high school, did one degree in biology and chemistry first. So I had that kind of foundational degree because in the US, that's how you do it. You do your foundation degree, get a bachelor's, and then do pharmacy or medicine afterwards. But I really wanted to move back to the UK, and it was summer holidays, so I literally just applied as an international student and got into pharmacy and was like, done. I'm just going to roll with it. But it wasn't necessarily my passion at the time. But I'm so glad that I've chosen that pathway, because I've really discovered what a pharmacist can do and what we're capable of, all the skills we can utilize through my journey. And hopefully during your own student journey, you're figuring out some of those elements as well. Yeah. I want to dive into the fact that you aren't just a pharmacy student and you do loads of other things outside of pharmacy. So number one, obviously you've gotten involved with BPSA. So tell me about how you became their IT officer, and also what does the role of an IT officer involve?
Okay. So I first found out about the BPSA through an email from my university. So they were talking about giving free tickets to the AC, to the annual conference. So at first I ignored it because as a first year, like when you get emails from the university, you don't really look at them like that. Even if it's something like, oh, apply for this, you don't really look at them because you're just in your own world as a first year. But my friends who are also on the BPSA right now, vice president, they said, oh, they apply for it. One of them got a free ticket. Other one said he's going to pay. So I was like, I'm going to pay. So I paid, went to my first annual conference, and I really enjoyed it. But at that time, I felt like I was too busy to try and go for an exec role. So I went again the next year, but it coincided with a trip overseas, so I couldn't apply. So I went again third year. And before going into that conference, I was like, I'm going to go into this conference aiming to be something more. I'm going to go for exec. If I don't get it, I'll be happy that I've put myself out there. So I went, I did the showcase to get the role, and I got put into the position of IT officer. And with IT officer, what I basically do is I manage the website. So manage all updates on the website, manage how it looks cosmetically to make sure that it looks good so people are attracted towards it, make sure that everything is up to date, and people can go and find what they're looking for if they're going to the website. On top of that, I manage the link tree as well. So all the links for the association and basically every technological part of the association. So if anyone on the team wants something done, wants something created online, they come to me, they can come to me and ask me to create it if they're feeling too lazy to do it themselves. And on top of that, I manage the emails, and any inquiries that people have, they go straight to me, and then I can delegate them or respond to them directly. And I'm also involved in all the campaigns, just like the rest of the executives as well.
Awesome. I mean, I think one of the reasons why you were genuinely motivated to join the exec is because you've got good friends who are doing it.
Yeah.
And it's always good when you've got like friends and they become your little family, don't they, in pharmacy? And you've got a really tight network, I know, through the exec, especially with Craig and Emeka. So it's good that you've got your friends alongside you on the journey, which is really, really nice to do things together. With an IT officer role, I mean, I think it's really important as things are changing for us digitally and how everything is now online, which is so different to what I was exposed to when I was in pharmacy school myself and as a training pharmacist. And in my early years, everything was still paper drug charts. Working as a clinical pharmacist, there was really limited tech, but now it's really useful to gain skills in that area. Are you quite tech savvy anyways, or do you feel like this is helping you to kind of improve your skill set?
I was quite tech savvy anyways. Like I would always like watch YouTube videos about stuff to do with tech, not on a deeper level of like learning to code because I tried, but I couldn't. So in that aspect, I am improving. But in general, tech savviness, I was already like that.
Sweet. And how do you like website building?
Um, so with Squarespace, which is what we use at BPSA, it's very simple, very easy to use. But I'm also actually the IPSF Euro website coordinator as well. And then that is kind of different. Like, is not laid out on a plate for you. I actually have to go into it and showcase more skills in essence. So on a simple level like Squarespace, it's quite easy. But moving up to WordPress and other website builders, it gets quite difficult. But I'm navigating around that and learning. So it's quite fun as well.
I'm using Squarespace, and it was really easy to build my website using Squarespace and just make it look Yeah, like it's copying, pasting, drag and drop, like altering fonts, everything's quite easy. My website is very simple. It's just, mainly just showcasing the podcast and a page that tells everyone who I am and about me and links to all my social channels. But I found it really easy to build on there as well, which is quite nice. So it's good to know that like you're learning all these additional skills outside of what traditional pharmacy will teach you. And also you'll be able to transfer some of those skills into roles depending on where you go in your pharmacy world. If you work in a GP practice or in a hospital pharmacy, you're going to be managing all these pharmacy systems. And even now, where I'm working in a hospital, there's like 8 or 9 apps that we have to learn how to use just to manage one patient. You've got your notes on one app, you've got the blood results on another app, you've got summary care record where you're looking at what your patient's previous medications are, and you've really got to navigate through a lot of tech in order to treat one patient. Things are moving forward where we don't have to use so many apps, but we're in a world where everything is kind of moving online, which is quite exciting. But it's good that you're kind of like getting into using the skills now so that you'll feel so much more comfortable, because there are pharmacists who I work with who are slightly older. They're not used to using as much tech. They even struggle with things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and even email, simple things on email. And they're also reluctant to change and figure things out because it's just so different and it's just so many additional kind of tasks that you have to learn, that they find it really hard to kind of shift that mindset and take the time to figure things out and problem solve. And I'm trying to move a lot of like my work projects onto apps like Asana or Trello or, like Mondays, where you're managing your tasks or your projects through app format. You can collaborate with other people on the team, but actually get people to engage with downloading an extra app and learning how to use it and actively integrate it into their daily life is probably one of the biggest challenges I have. But it's good to hear that obviously a lot of students are focusing on what tech looks like and trying to improve that. Do you use any specific apps for your like time management or keeping organized with your activities because you've got lots of things going on?
Yeah. So 2 main apps, not really anything crazy. I use Opal, which is just like a app blocker. So during my work time, which is always set to 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, all sorts of like social media apps, which are like distractions, anything on my phone, they're all just blocked. So then I can focus from that 9 to 5 and then get all the work that I need to get done, so that afterwards, any sort of distraction, I've done the work. So it's business before pleasure. And then my notes app, which is just very basic. I just have a checklist of everything I need to get done that day in chronological order. And I just check it off. And then I have 2 lists. I have stuff to do for the week and then one for the day as well. And that's how I get stuff done.
Awesome. I love that. And do you feel like you achieve a lot of the things that you want to do? Or do you, when you've had days where you haven't necessarily achieved, do you have a reflective period in the evening where you reset for the next day?
Yeah, I have a reflective period when I don't complete the stuff that I need to do. Earlier on when I started it, that reflective period was always something that would happen each day because I would never complete the list. But as I've gone along, I know like what's actually reasonable and possible to do within the day. So when I plan, they're actually possible to do within the whole day. So it gets easier to complete the whole list. I still reflect to see if I put enough effort, but yeah.
Sweet. And outside of pharmacy, I know that you like powerlifting. How did you get into that?
Powerlifting. So I started gym in 2019, at the end of 2019. And I noticed that I was always quite on the bigger side. So people will always be like, oh, how much you bench? How much you do all of this? But I would just tell them that I don't even go to the gym like that. Like I'll just do like push-ups and pull-ups at home. And that's all, but nothing serious. So as I started going to the gym and getting the pump, I was really enjoying it. And I was like, oh, what can I do with this that's going to make it more fun? And then I was like, oh, I could compete. So I actually looked at all of like the lifting sports, strongman, Olympic power, weightlifting, powerlifting, even CrossFit as well. I just looked at all of them and I looked at which one was the most feasible for me um, to be able to balance with my other sport, basketball, at that time. And I was like, oh, powerlifting seems like the simplest to balance alongside because it's just squat, bench, and deadlift. So I looked up the federations, I looked up the rules for them, and then I realized that, first of all, I wasn't strong enough at that point to get the qualifying totals to compete at a high level. And second of all, I didn't have the mobility to be able to like get a white light for the sport. So I had to then plan, okay, I need to get my numbers up and I need to get my mobility up so that I can get white lights. And then I'll apply for my first show to compete. And that ended up being in my first year. So 2 years after I started gym, in essence.
Awesome. And did you basically figure out how to do the training on your own, or did you join a club to begin with?
So I really did it on my own, actually. Like when you start, you just look at YouTube videos, you look online. So that's literally what I just did. I just went on YouTube, looked at workouts, and then little by little, going through each different YouTuber, I just find out what was consistent and what actually seemed to work, and built up my knowledge through that and looking at forums as well. And that's how I learned how to train properly. So when it came time that I was like, okay, I'm strong enough, I've got the mobility, let me search up how powerlifters actually like prepare for their shows. Because at that time I didn't want to pay for a coach. I just wanted to try to do it on my own. So I looked up how powerlifters prepare for their shows. And I saw how they train, how they create their macrocycles and microcycles. And I created my own. I inputted my own weights into them and then built up to my first show and competed.
Awesome. It takes a lot of discipline,
Yeah.
a lot of daily dedication, a lot of planning, because you're looking at kind of what you're eating on a daily basis, what time can you dedicate to training, even setting out the training schedule of what you're going to do each week alongside the mobility, because let's face it, there's a lot of time that you have to put into all the stretches and the mobility to make sure that you can actually do all of these exercises. How do you manage that alongside being a student? And it just sounds like you put in so much effort into the research side of things because you learned something from scratch. You're taking time to watch YouTube videos, looking at the forums, understanding the rules, actually creating that schedule and doing everything that you need to do to actually perform. That sounds like a whole degree in itself sometimes when you think about it, especially when you're learning from scratch. You know, if you did it from sort of high school and A levels, you get that basic kind of like foundational learning. But because you've only been doing it for the last few years, it just sounds like you've really spent a lot of your spare time outside of pharmacy focusing on this.
Yeah. So how I would do it. So in first year, obviously my time management wasn't really that good, which is why I went into resits. But after that, I realized what I needed to do in second year. So what I'd do is I'd look at my schedule for the week. I'd have my program planned out and I'd just be flexible with what time I go to the gym. So I had a bike, so that's how I'd get to the gym, and I'd cycle to uni. So let's say I had a lecture at 9 a.m. and then I had a gap between like 11 and 4. In that gap, I go to the gym, do what I need to do, and then come back to my lectures. And that's how I just plan all the weeks. I'd plan my rest days accordingly to when I have like a busy day at uni. So I won't have enough time to fit that in alongside my studying as well. And I just plan the whole week out like that. And then it's also the nutritional aspect of it as well. I just have to always have my meals prepped, and then be tracking what I'm eating as well. And then in doing that, that's also like helping me plan ahead as well. Because if I'm planning my meals for the next day, then obviously I'm planning my study as well and my gym alongside that. And it just fits together like a puzzle piece after doing all that.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, sometimes when you've got the sort of final goal, you figure out what steps you have to take going backwards in order to achieve that, especially if you're working to, certain like challenges that you've got, or maybe you've got a competition coming up, you work backwards to figure out those goals. Have you noticed that there's anything that you do when it comes to powerlifting and training and how it kind of aligns with what you do in pharmacy? And what I mean by that is that when you weight train and say you're working towards your deadlift, it's always really exciting when you make those sort of 1% gains, even if it's 1 kilo in terms of your like 1 rep max. It is really, really exciting when those shifts happen and you know that you're making really small increments in progress. You're not suddenly going to add 20 kilos to your deadlift overnight. I mean, maybe you do, but in general, when people are lifting, you're making those small kind of changes every single day or every single week or every single month to reach your goal. Yeah. Is there anything specific that you do in pharmacy that kind of links those two things together?
I feel like what links them both is mainly just consistency, because with powerlifting, with gym in general, if you want to make that progress to reach your goals, you can't be skipping on gym sessions, and you have to put full effort every time if you want to actually see those results, which is the same with pharmacy as well. You have to be consistent with your studying and keeping up with what you need to know for your exams and for your career as well. And if you break that consistency, that's when you start to forget things. That's when you start becoming disorganized. And that's a recipe for failure in essence. So it's just that consistency with gym. I have to keep on going in order to not lose what I've had previously and to be able to gain. And then that's the same with studying. I have to keep up so that I can continue to learn more, but also keep my prior knowledge and be better, have a more comprehensive understanding as well.
Yeah, totally. And this whole kind of like organizational thing, like looking at your timetable, making sure that you're prepared for what's coming, is really valuable, because there are a lot of students who are kind of like lastminute.com, or they stay up all night and study. I mean, I've been there for exams in my previous life where I would do all-nighters all the time in order to prep for exams. And that was in my first degree when I was in the US. I used to do all-nighters all the time, like back-to-back weeks, like constantly staying up late at night in the library with my friends trying to like cram for exams. But then when I shifted to pharmacy, I was like, I do not want to do that again, because the lack of sleep impacted my health, my mental health, like the lack of motivation to then get to the gym and achieve some of the goals that I wanted to do. So I imagine for you, having that routine is really important, like going to bed on time is really important to you. So even with studying, it's more than likely that you are the student that probably does little bits every day, or maybe larger chunks on the weekends when you're more free, rather than just waiting, procrastinating, and then doing a big kind of like overnight, bulk study in order to prep or get an assignment done. Yeah. Tell me if I'm wrong though.
No, you're absolutely correct. Like in between everything I had, as I said, I'd even go to the gym in between lectures. So if there wasn't a big enough chunk, I'd just go to the library and just study in between lectures. And the time I really like to go to the gym is 8 o'clock, because that's when it starts to get less busy, and it also allows me a lot of time during the day. So from, let's say, 10 a.m., if I don't have a 9 a.m., from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., that's when I'll be on campus, either with my lectures or just study. And then I'd leave at 7, and then I'd know that I'm done for the day with my study. And then I'd do my gym, come back, eat, and go to sleep on time, repeat the next day. And that's just how I kept up
What do you do to relax?
to relax. Gym is my relaxation.
Okay, good. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that that's your time out and that's your time to just kind of be you, do your thing, enjoy what you love, but still achieve your goals at the same time, which I love. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about your story with first year resits, and it sounds like actually your first year was a tough one and you were learning a lot about you, your time management, keeping organized, achieving some of those goals, like some failures coming into place and learning from that and improving.
Yeah.
What happened with your first year exams and why did you fail?
So I started off first year like on the ball, like the same mindset that people older than you tell you to go into uni. From day one, always be on it, always be studying, and then just keep up, and then you'll be in a good place if you do that. I did that for like the first month, and then after that, I just stopped going to lectures. Like 9 a.m.s for sure, I'd miss those. Ones in the afternoons, I'd show up like 50% of the time, and then I wasn't studying properly alongside that. So that just led to me being like very underprepared for my January exams. And it got to a point where it was in January. I had my exams in like 3 days, my first exam. And I just had to be studying for 15 hours straight. And it wasn't even studying, it was just cramming for those nights because I just left it too late. And that led to me having a reset in one of those exams. 2 of them I got away with. So, which is why like I still had kind of that mindset going into second year, but it still was a reality check because before that I never failed a single exam before. So I was like, what's going on? And what I feel like it was is obviously going to uni, separate from your parents, you feel like there's no eyes on you. So it allows you to slip up when you were disciplined in A levels and GCSE, but now you feel like, oh, like I'm not really, there's no one to keep you accountable in essence. So that's what I feel like happened. And then that alongside my parents moving. So like now I have 2 places to call home, but they're not really my home. So that all just had a cumulative effect of just making me just feel like, oh, pharmacy exams, like, who cares? But I still tried in the end. So I still had a little bit in me saying, I want to pass pharmacy school, which is why I did all of those 15-hour shifts. Even the night before the exam, I was up until 3 a.m. just cramming. But obviously it was too late to have that mindset.
But it's good you've understood where your problems were in terms of what went wrong, and you've made amazing shifts into, your next year of pharmacy by trying to be a little bit more organized, be a little bit more disciplined, understand that you need to have a bedtime routine and kind of be able to then have the motivation to wake up on time, go to the gym, study, attend your lectures, all of that, because pharmacy is 100% not an easy journey.
Mm-hmm.
When I did it, there were no breaks in the day, actually. In fact, mine was 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., back to back, lectures, workshops, whatever, labs, Monday to Friday. And I used to go to the gym in my lunch break. So we had 1 till 2 every day for lunch. And I would go straight to the campus gym and work out for 30 minutes. I wouldn't even shower, just like go back to have food and then jump back into the lectures. So it's good that UEA have got the luxury of having a few breaks so that you have a bit of free time to study. And that transition from A levels to university is massive. You are really well supported in school time. Your schedule's all set out for you. You kind of know exactly what you have to study for the curriculum. In the evenings, you do have parents who are maybe hassling you a bit or having expectations that you're in your room studying and doing what you need to do to prepare for exams. You've obviously got an elder sibling who's been through medical school, so there are expectations as well from the family that maybe, you've got to be a high achiever, right? So that shift is quite difficult. And you want to have fun as well. Like, nobody wants to go to university and constantly be working. Like, you want to go out, like, on nights out with your friends. You want to be able to attend whatever clubs and things that you want to do outside of just what pharmacy has to offer. But at the same time, if you're really dedicated to achieving a goal, you have to have like the discipline and the consistency to make it a reality. And I can promise you this, that all of the things that you're doing, because it sounds like you're on this amazing pathway, are going to really push you forward into being an amazing pharmacist and have all these incredible transferable skills, which will link to the role of a pharmacist, which can be really, really demanding. I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on the future. So what you've learnt so far in the pharmacy degree, what you've kind of enjoyed, what you're passionate about in terms of your interests, and where you see yourself for sort of like your training year and your first few years in pharmacy.
So what I really enjoy in the pharmacy degree is the patient aspect, actually. Like, I was expecting to be more of a like science focused pharmacist kind of person, like maybe not even necessarily a clinical pharmacist kind of person. But as I've gone through the years, what I've realized is when it comes to OSCEs, patient facing types of scenarios, simulations, I actually do enjoy those and getting that patient interaction and that like case-based kind of scenarios, even if I'm not directly facing a patient, like actually solving those clinical types of situations. That's what I really enjoy, which is why I picked a hospital split for my pre-reg year. And that is the direction I see myself going for now, like trying to go that hospital clinical route. I did want to go the business route as well and like try being a pharmacy owner as well. But right now, I just feel like going up the bands in the NHS and just enjoying being a hospital pharmacist as of now.
Awesome. I think that's a great idea. It's how I started my journey. And so many different things have come out of my journey, from working abroad, like living with Sanjay, like in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, but still being a pharmacist. I've tried academia and teaching pharmacy students, which I've absolutely loved and thoroughly enjoyed, but utilizing a different set of skills than I would in my clinical facing role. I think the first 3 years when you're doing your clinical diploma, you're still building on that knowledge that you've received from your MPharm and applying it day to day in cases, but real life cases of patients right in front of you, not the fake cases that you see at student like you've got now at uni. And you get to rotate to all these different specialist areas. So you start figuring out exactly which specialist area that you want to go into. As a resident, I did pediatrics and I loved it, but I was super afraid of the tiny doses or the impact of making a mistake on a pediatric chart. A lot of the drugs are unlicensed. You have so many things to consider when it comes to pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, finding the right formulations for babies. Like, we don't always have liquids available with the right strengths that are appropriate for a neonate or a young child. How we crush tablets, how do we make it taste good so that children actually take it? And all of that complexity was quite overwhelming, even though I really enjoyed the rotation. I was like, I don't know if I can see myself doing it because it's so outside of the standard kind of adult knowledge that I've got. But after years of doing an adult job and then becoming a parent and stepping onto a pediatric ward, my entire mindset shifted. And managing a neonatal ward and seeing these small babies and being able to, I guess, communicate with parents and help them to understand different medicines really helped me to understand that this is my calling. And I haven't turned back since from peds, and I absolutely love it. And I am so glad that I finally found my specialty. But I didn't find my specialty until 10 years into the journey. So I've been really sort of generalist, exploring different things from leadership, kind of education, exploring pharmacy in different countries. So you never know what's going to happen. Like, you might go into the clinical side of pharmacy, but then you get an interest in the digital side of things, the IT side of things, the finance side of things, and that business aspect that you kind of think that you like. At this point, you can integrate that into your hospital life, which would be quite cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm really enjoyed getting to know you today and having a conversation with you. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come onto the podcast. And also, I just want to wish you all the best for your upcoming training year and your future as a pharmacist.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as well.
Cool.